One word of advice you will always get from an experienced sewing machine repair person is you have to change the thread before you throw out the machine. And I know that. And all of my wooden spools were already wound with Singer buttonhole thread, which is a puffy thread that I wanted to use as an effect with the star design on cotton fabric. And I was waiting for more wooden spools to get here, and they had gotten lost in the mail. They got here today. Now, so we're going to talk about the Gateway again just for a minute, because even if the Model 20 is the better machine, the Model 20 by Singer, even if it's better engineered, these are still working toy sewing machines, the Gateways. And so I also had one of these when I was a child, so in my mind, they should be equal as far as the task of just putting chain stitching on a block. Now, what you're going to need to do if you have a Gateway is to find the perfect spool, or find 2 or 3 of them, but at least one spool. Now this one is the one that works. It's 1 1/4 inches tall, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 15/16 across. I guess you could go with 1 inch, but this one is 15/16 and 1 1/4 inches tall. It has to have a fairly narrow hole so that the spring will hit the top of the wood spool on all sides and not sink down into a hole. And the reason it has to be that tall, you would think you could use a shorter one because the threading for the nut does go all the way down here. The problem with using a shorter one is then your nut and spring are tightened all the way down here, and you've already used up all your tension adjustment. So you need 1 1/4 inches by 15/16. This is normal sewing thread. Because the spools just got here, I paid, and this man was very generous, thank you, Joe. I paid $7.50 for about 30 wooden spools, and it turned out they were more than that in shipping, and thank you, Joe. Anyway, they're all different sizes, as you can see, and that's why I'm talking about the Gateway again, no matter what I actually use to make quilts or sewing all the time or anything. If you have the right spool and you have correct sewing thread, the buttonhole thread was okay. I got it to do what I needed it to do, but it's a heavy thread. So now what we're going to do is the same thing I was doing with the Gateway, with a tighter tension than I had the buttonhole thread at, and I can show you that in a minute, the difference in the tension, and the correct thread. And on both the Model 20 and the Gateway, you want to get the tail thread out of the way. And at some, depending on your fabric, you may have to pull it from the back. With the Model 20, you can change your stitch length. It has 3 different stitch lengths. With the Gateway, which is similar to a lot of the handhelds, the only way to change your stitch length is to adjust the tension. But that is all you need to do, really, because your stitch will show you whether or not you have the right tension. So, here's a star. The numbers on there are how many squares I have to do. So let's look at the first row that I did. It's right here. Now that's an acceptable stitch, but it's a little loose. So then I tightened the tension a little bit, and we have this one. And that's even better. more than acceptable. Looks good, doesn't it? But then we have this one, where I again adjusted the tension with a correct thread, and that's exactly like a Model 20. It's a little crooked right through there. And then here's the one I just did, going left to right. And again, just like a Model 20. Don't throw out your gateway. Fiddle with it. Find the correct spool. Use a correct thread. Just because it's vintage and they used to have special 6-cord cotton thread doesn't mean you need to do that now. This, I believe, is Star white cotton sewing thread on a cone for like $4. So nothing fancy, just modern. It's not a heavyweight and it's not a lightweight, it's a medium weight thread. The gateway rides again.